start the walk around inspection by you approach the vehicle, you look at the vehicle and notice if it's leaning to one side or the other. Then you look underneath the vehicle for any leaks. Fluid leaks, transmission fluid, oil leaks, power steering fluid, coolant, or gas. Any kind of leak under the truck, you look for that. All right, after the overall view, you open the hood and you check the engine compartment. Now when you take your test, they're not going to have you do all these procedures.
Mm-hmm.
So just explain what you check and touch everything as you go. That way the examiner knows you know what you're talking about, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you open the hood, you check your oil. That's right here, okay? You check your wiring. You check for cracked or frayed or worn insulation on your wiring. All right? You check your belts. This is the air compressor belt. The water pump and the alternator are on the other side. You check the belts for wear and tear, frays, cracks. You push down in the middle of the belt. If you get over 3/4 of an inch of play, the belt is too loose, it must be tightened, all right?
Mm-hmm.
While you're checking the belt, check the air compressor that's secure. All right, in here is your power steering fluid. There's a dipstick in there, you check that, but like I said, during the test, just explain what you're doing and touch the thing. Okay, you check your power steering fluid, and you check the hose going to the reservoir for leaks. Okay? Now we have to go to the other side. Okay. Over here, we check our coolant level, and you do that by the sight glass. You don't have to open the radiator cap.
Okay.
There's a sight glass there, you check your coolant level there. While you're checking that, you check your hoses going to the radiator and going from the radiator. You check them for any leaks and wear and tear. You check your belts on this side, your alternator belt and your water pump belt. Look for wear and tear, cracks and frays. Check for tightness. Push down in the middle. If you get over 3/4 of an inch of play, it's too loose, they have to be tightened. While you're doing that, check your alternator, check your water pump, make sure they're secure, okay? Check your windshield washer fluid reservoir. Make sure that's full. And while you're doing this, check all around the engine compartment for any kind of leak. Okay, now we checked everything under the hood except the automatic transmission dipstick. And the reason we left that go till last is because the engine has to be running to get a reading on there. So what we do, we leave that for last. We got to come around to this end. And then we check the automatic transmission, which is this dipstick here right next to the oil. But as I said before, they're not going to have you do this, so just mention it to the examiner and touch it so that he knows that you know what you're talking about, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the reasons of noise, we're just going to pretend that the truck is going.
Okay.
All right, so right now the truck is going, and we checked the transmission last. So, all right, everything
So,
under the hood is checked.
When you do under the hood, the engine's still going to be running? Or no,
No,
you're
no.
going to have the engine off because you got to check the belts?
The engine's off for everything but the automatic transmission
Okay.
dipstick.
All right.
That's why we leave that go to last. Check
Okay.
everything else, your oil, your power steering, your radiator, your wiring, your hoses, etc.
Okay.
Then start your engine and check your transmission last.
Okay.
Then leave the engine going, shut your hood, and with the engine running, we go in and check inside the cab. So
Okay.
now once again, for reasons because of it's too noisy, we're going to leave the engine off, but we're just going to pretend it's on right now so
Okay.
that you can hear me. All right, now the engine's running and we check everything inside the cab. Now, we find it easier if you start at the top and work your way down. That way you're less apt to forget something.
Okay.
All right, so we'll start right at the top with our windshield. We check for any damage first of all, cracks, holes, etc. We make sure that the windshield's clean, and we make sure that the windshield has a legal inspection sticker. Okay? The next thing we check is our mirrors over here. Okay? Once again, we're checking for damage. We're checking for any cracks, anything like that. Make sure the mirrors are clean. Make sure they're adjusted properly so you can see behind you. All right, coming down the dash. I don't know if you can get a good shot of this, Steve, but we check our gauges next. Okay, that's why we have the truck running, so that all these gauges are working, but
Okay.
right, we're just pretending the truck is on for now.
Right.
All right, we check our temperature gauge over here, and what we're doing, we're checking that these gauges are working first of all, and then we're checking that that they're reading the proper reading for what we're checking. For instance, the temperature gauge, the normal reading in there is the range between 180 and 210 degrees, that type of thing. But mainly what we're checking for is that they're working. We're checking all these controls in the cab that they're working in here. So we check our temperature gauge, we check our oil pressure gauge. That should read between 20 and 40 psi when you're sitting at idling. You check your gas gauge that you have fuel in the thing. You check your voltmeter that your battery's all right. If the needle is in the green area, then you know your battery's okay. And the last thing we look for, our air supply pressure gauge. That tells us how much air we have in our air tanks. That should read 125 psi to be at full strength. Okay? All right, after our gauges, we work our way down, we come to our steering wheel. All right, we check our wheel for play. You can't have any more than 10 degrees or 2 inches of play on a steering wheel this size. If you have more play than that, steering could be very dangerous. You probably shouldn't use the truck. All right, while we're on the wheel, we test our horn. We're not going to blow it here for obvious reasons.
Right.
You check your horn. If your truck has an air horn, you check the air horn while you're checking the other horn, okay? While we're still on our wheel, we check each turn signal just to make sure that it's working inside the cab. We'll be checking them from the outside later. Okay, while we're on that, we check our four-way flashers too. While we're still on the steering wheel, we check our modulating control valve, which is just the technical term for an emergency brake. What this lever does is allows you to apply the spring brakes gradually in case you have to stop in an emergency if you lose your air pressure. All right, now working our way down once again. Next we check our headlight switch, make sure that works. While we're checking our headlights, we check our dimmer switch, which on this truck is down on the floor, over here on the left, if you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We check our windshield wipers, make sure they work. The windshield washer, make sure they work. Okay. We check our heater and defroster, make sure that works. Then we check our brakes. First we check the parking brake. All right, we push the knob in. Then we check our service brake with the parking brake knob released, because you never push the service brake with the parking brake on